Laptops, 100%. Or listen to our amazing guest speaker. We will finish our projects when that is over. All right? So, everyone, thank you.
Hi, I'm Natalie Pinto. I am a technical program manager. I'm here to talk to you about what that is. It's one of those roles in tech that like a lot of people don't know exists. So I'm here to talk about that and my very strange, convoluted path into working in tech. Yeah, so that's me in a nutshell. Let me tell you a little bit about my background. I grew up around here. I actually grew up in Belmont. I went to Notre Dame High School. I went to Santa Cruz, which I see, maybe it looks like you also did.
That's where I went, yeah.
Nice. So yeah, I went to UC Santa Cruz for college. I studied history and literature, actually, nothing in any way remotely related to tech. I was actually studying to be a teacher, and I was teaching while I was in college. I was teaching kindergarten, and I was teaching 8th grade. Really wildly different ages, but that's fine. I graduated from college, and I was like very set on my life plan, like it's gonna be great. I'm gonna go teach middle school, it's gonna be awesome. And then life happens, and I couldn't afford to get my master's degree. Like I just didn't have enough money to get my teaching credential and my master's degree. So I had to figure out a plan B for my whole life. And I needed a job, and tech seemed like a place where there were jobs. So I just like looked around, I started talking to tech companies to see like what could I even do here? How can I take the skills that I got from teaching or learning all of that stuff and apply it to anything else? I ended up working at a startup called Thousand Eyes. I was there for 5 years, and when I joined, I was employee number 20. So it was like a teeny tiny little startup. And I joined as the office manager, which is just like a catch-all title for do anything and everything for this company. So anything that's not engineering, I did it. I was IT for a while. I was HR. I did sales and marketing. I did everything. So that was really cool, and over time, while I was working there, I started getting into project management and then program management, and then I realized I really liked doing that kind of work, and so I sort of pivoted again into technical program management, which I'll tell you all about. But like, if you can take anything away from my presentation today, it's that like I have a non-traditional background, and honestly, so do most people in tech, and it's a very twisty, windy path to figure out what programs and projects. So I'm no big boss, but I do have to try to get the program moving forward without being anyone's direct leader. So that's sort of the definition of what I do very broadly. One question I get a lot is like, how is this different than just project management? Like, what is program versus project? So just to clarify that right away, a program is big and encompasses other projects. So as an example, a company might say we have a new brand identity. We have to redo everything. So they're going to make a new iPhone app, they're going to make a new Android app, they're going to make a new website. Each of those is a project, and then all encompassing that is a strategic program, and that's the kind of thing I would manage. So it kind of means that I have to work day to day with each of these projects to make sure things are moving along, but it also means I have to get up really, really high level and see what's happening across everything to make sure the whole thing is on track. So that's program versus project. Any questions so far about any of the stuff I've touched on?
Did you start working on projects first and then?
I did, yeah. So right now I work at Box. Before this I worked at Pandora, and that was really where I started like actually getting great experience doing technical project and program management. And so I worked on the consumer electronics side of things, so anywhere you would listen to Pandora that's not like your phone. So like Alexa or Google Home, things like that. So each of those is a project, and then I did many of them. And so each of those as a whole was a program. And so I moved from doing one or two to doing many of them more strategically. Yeah. Any other questions? Cool. So this is actually a question people genuinely ask me at work. Why are you here? Why do we need you? Why do you exist? Why do we want to hire this role in the first place? Technical program management is what's considered to be a luxury role. So companies don't have to have them, but things work better if you do. So it can be confusing as to like why we exist and why companies would want to have a team of people doing this. So in short, software development is really, really, really hard. And when you're doing it as a whole, as a company, it's super complex and chaotic. Like, you've all worked on group projects. Have you ever worked on a group project that like went absolutely perfectly, no conflict, everyone contributed equally, and it was just perfect, heavenly group project? Does that ever happen to anyone in this room? Yeah, I don't think so. It's usually like a big sort of mixture and mess, and that's when you're working with a group of like 5 or 6 people. So imagine doing that with like 150 people. It gets really messy and it can be really chaotic. So just as an example, this is like an actual scenario of how this sort of stuff works in every company I've ever been at. So you start with a product manager, and they have an idea for what they want to do at the company, what they want to build next, what would actually help the company move forward. And they go to their bosses, the directors and the VPs, and they say, this is what I want to build. Can I use company money to do this? Can I use our resources? Is this okay? And they go to the CEO and the CTO, the CMO, and say, is this okay? Can we use this money? And they say, sure, go for it, sounds great. So they go back to the product manager and say, do it. I don't want to know the details, just make it happen. Don't spend too much money and do it fast. So the product manager goes to a designer and says, this is what I want to build. Can we do that? And the designer says, that's literally impossible, it's never going to happen. And then they go back and forth forever, just like arguing about what it's going to be and why. And in the meantime, the product manager goes and talks to an engineering leader. He says, I need engineers to build this. Can we do that? And the engineering manager says, well, let me go talk to my team. Also, there are 100 of them. So I'll talk to all of these people, and we'll figure out if we can build it. And then the product manager goes and talks to the engineers and says, this is what I want to build. And the engineers say, I don't know if we can do that. I have to go talk to these other engineers and see if they have the infrastructure for us to do it. And also, all of those engineering teams have their own this side of everything. And like, it's everywhere. And we haven't built anything yet. Like, this is just getting to the idea. And so you can imagine, like, once it starts going, once you start actually building and working on things, it's just a continuation of that big squiggly line all over the place. It can be really chaotic. It's very easy for teams to just, like, think they're going in the same direction, but actually be going completely opposite ways. So, the solution is to just hire someone who's literally our entire job is just keep it on the rails. Keep it focused and going. Make sure we're on track. Make sure people are working together in like a truly collaborative sense so that we can get the job done and do it well. So that's my job, just like at its core, is try to keep things focused and going. So what does that actually look like? It looks like facilitating tough conversations. A lot of my job is honestly like sitting in a room with people who fundamentally agree but disagree on the details, and then working with them to make sure we're having a productive conversation, we're using our words kindly, we're collaborating together, and this is not an argument. We're not fighting, we're a team. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of identifying work that we need from other people on other sides of the company and negotiating to make sure that happens. Planning what we're doing next. This next one, unblocking other people's work, is something that we call just like knocking down roadblocks. So like if an engineer says, I've built as far as I can't go any further unless 2 other teams go do something for me, or we fix this fundamental problem with our infrastructure, it's my job to help take that roadblock away so they can keep going. Report honestly on how we're doing. So that's kind of a tough one, but it basically means I have to go to meetings and give bad news all the time. And I have to not be afraid to give that bad news and like do it politely without blaming anybody and just report honestly on what's happening without like burning any bridges in doing so. And then partner with our leadership to like develop ways of doing work better so that we're like continually improving and we have fewer issues overall. Honestly, it's kind of like working my way out of a job, like making me a little less necessary as we go. A day in the life. So in general, I usually start my day by talking to other TPMs. We all try to help each other unblock each other's projects. Sometimes it's just easier to work amongst ourselves and negotiate that way, rather than involving like 20 other people. I'll go check in with engineering, figure out what they've been working on. I'll talk to another team to like unblock work between them. I'll usually participate in some sort of meetings around planning or retrospectives, which is where we talk about what did we do, how could we have done it better, what do we want to do next time. I'll meet with leadership to talk about what's coming next. And then a lot of what I do is also documentation. So like I document the choices we made, why we made them, and how we're going to move forward. So the thing I want to touch on, this role is, it's one of those roles that has a low barrier to entry in that you don't need a specific degree to do it. You really need a collection of specific skills but those skills are not necessarily things you can earn with a degree. And so what makes a good TPM? You have to be unafraid to say what is true, even if it's bad. And you have to be able to do it politely and diplomatically. You have to be okay with presenting, public speaking, work a lot in spreadsheets and not find that really boring. Have great attention to detail, have the ability to talk to anybody. Some days I will be in a meeting where I'm walking an intern through basic business process, and then my next half hour I will go talk to the chief technical officer about our overall strategy. And I have to context switch back and forth between varying levels all day. Take feedback well. Because we are in the middle of everything, we will often get sort of the brunt of people's concerns or complaints, and so we need to be able to take that, absorb it, and work with it, and move forward. And then have the ability to explain things in a lot of different ways. That's pretty much it in terms of what I do. Any questions that I can answer, and I'm not just limiting questions to technical program management, but anything about tech, finding a job in tech, going to college to study tech or not, or any of things along the way there. Any questions? It's too early for questions.
Maybe you can talk a little bit about, what are some of the backgrounds of other people and how they get into tech as well?
Yeah, so a lot of the people I work with come from super diverse backgrounds. I work with people who are engineers who never studied engineering. They just did it as a hobby and they realized they were good at it and they enjoyed doing it. They just started publishing their work online and then found a job just through their skills alone. They didn't need the paper degree to back them up. I work with actually a lot of TPMs are ex-teachers. That's actually a really common pattern I've noticed. So there's a huge background of people who have pivoted into tech from other industries. Yeah, and most of the people I work with don't do the thing they studied in college, for whatever that's worth, as you guys are all figuring out college. They used college to put together a collection of skills that is unique to them, and then found a role that is unique to them, that they enjoy, and it doesn't always match to what they studied, which I think is really interesting.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So most companies I've seen have a requirement to want 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 years of experience.
Yeah.
As listed as a requirement. But for somebody, especially our seniors that are going to college and just graduating, how do they get around that? I mean,
Yeah.
they want, X number of years. It seems like everybody wants X number of years, but you got to start somewhere.
Totally. That's a really great question, and it's something. So there's a lot of different angles that I want to answer that from. The first is that functionally, when you're applying for jobs, ignore that. Just if you think you can do the job based on the skills that it says you need to have, not degrees, but be a good communicator, know how to use Excel and VLOOKUP or whatever the skills are. If you have those skills, apply. The worst that can happen is they say no, but the best thing that could happen is that the person who's hiring for that job is looking for someone for them to grow and foster a relationship with and mentor, and they're excited to have someone who maybe doesn't have as much experience, but is a perfect cultural fit for their team. And so the worst that can happen is you never get a response. Best that can happen, you develop a great mentor relationship. So there's no loss in applying for those jobs. I personally, the job I'm in now required something 10 years of experience, I think. I have 3 years of experience doing this work, as opposed to all my other experience. But yeah, so those requirements, they're suggestions, and a good company that is interested in building good people won't put a ton of emphasis on those. They're sort of a matter of form. Yeah, so that's my big point about that, is that don't be afraid of those jobs. In terms of getting experience, I highly recommend internship programs. I myself didn't get to do one, but I've seen how the companies I've worked at do them, and they are really amazing opportunities. If you're interested in working in tech, if you can find an internship in tech, absolutely take advantage of it. A lot of them are set up as rotational programs, so you get to actually work with multiple teams, and on each of those teams, you get to develop something that genuinely impacts the company. It's not just come in, get the copy, observe us doing work, you're an intern, don't touch anything. I worked with engineering interns who have only ever taken computer science classes. They've never functionally built anything, and day one, they're like dropped in our dev environment, like go to town, build this thing for us, figure it out, and we're here if you have questions. And it's like a really cool opportunity for them. Yeah, does that answer your question? Cool. Anything else? What, are you guys all seniors? Juniors? Mix?
Sophomore.
Are you all, like, this is a computer science and engineering class, so are you all applying to like those sorts of degree programs?
Walmart.
Or is this like a mix? Is this sort of like a general interest?
My class is an intro to Python.
Oh, cool. Oh, Python. That was one of my hobby projects. I learned how to code when I was getting into doing this type of work. It's really fun. What are you all building?
Games, theoretical, like you walk into a room, you go left, right, up, down, find a monster, you try and kill it, you have a weapon, you try and kill it.
Cool.
Yeah.
That sounds really fun.
We recently made a tic-tac-toe board in Python, and you have to go left or right with the X, J, O.
That's awesome. That's very cool. I'm just like, if you guys don't have questions, I can just like tell you a story of like when I started doing engineering stuff. When I was at that startup, we had hackathons, and my job at that point was like to run the hackathon. So I was like organizing them, making sure that the teams had everything they need to like do their hacky work. And I thought it was kind of unfair that like I wasn't an engineer, and so I wasn't like invited to hack with them. And I thought that was just like not good enough for any hackathon that I was going to run. So in the months leading up to the hackathon, I learned Python. And then we had like an internal chat program called HipChat. If you guys know Slack, it was like the precursor to Slack. And I built myself a little bot that did half of my job for me in HipChat, just for fun. And I did it like during the hackathon, where like all the other engineers are building these like super complex like database stuff, and it's just like crazy wild. I have no idea what they're talking about. And I'm just like, I made a bot for our chat group, but it was really cool, and it was like my first real foray into like coding, and it was very fun. And that like moment of realizing that I could like do that and pivot into doing different things within the company was like really critical for me figuring out, oh, it like doesn't matter what's listed in the job description, you can just do whatever you want, and that's cool.
Maybe you could talk a little bit about things that they could do today to help start developing some of those skills.
Definitely. So I think I touched on this too, that a lot of companies are looking for things that are softer skills. So like you could be an amazing engineer. Like you could just be like, you blow the code test out of the water. Like it's just, you did a great job. But if you clearly can't work with people and collaborate, like you aren't presenting yourself in a way that is, I'm interested in working with this company, with this team, I have a growth mindset and I want to learn. If you aren't positioning yourself that way, and if you aren't genuinely that way, it can be really hard to get a job, because companies actually really hire for that. That's like the key indicator of like, will I take this person or not? Will I be able to work with them? So honestly, the best thing that you can do, on top of like, you know, going to college, get your degree, or develop skills without a degree that would like get you a job, the best thing you can do is find ways to be a leader, work with teams, have some backing to show, yes, I have these skills, but more importantly, I can work with all of you on making those skills into something cool for us. Yeah. Like if you are, let's see, if you're in high school, I think that would be like join a club, participate in clubs, or like build something on the side if you have the resources, just for fun. And then same thing in college, but you get to do it at a more like specific scale. Like you can go find something really specific where you can actually do side hustles or side projects with other students. I totally give that answer knowing that in college I did none of those things, but like, you know, that is a really cool thing that you can do and should do. And I regret not doing it.
Any other questions? Thinking about things that are going on in engineering, are you having any, how are those projects going? And is there any questions you could ask about how to improve, you know, working on your project? Okay. Well, thank you so much. Can we all say thank you? Is the video person still here? Okay, and can you just close that up and then have Ms. Sibley let us know